In a world where power decides everything, one ordinary life shatters into destiny. Betrayal, blood, and broken dreams carve the path of a hero who never asked to be one. But when fate opens its cruel hands, will he rise or be swallowed by the darkness? This is not just a story. This is a journey of survival, of strength, and of becoming something greater than human. Prepare yourself, because once you step into this world, there is no turning back. Welcome to the story that will change everything. Have Dragons Awakening, the Duke's son, is changing the plot. Chapter 6, Raven Von Vaise. 8 years had passed since the night Raven first opened his eyes in this world. 8 years since fate had handed him a new life, one wrapped in the silken threads of privilege yet bound by the thorns of loneliness. The Vaise family, a house of unyielding traditions and merciless expectations, had a rule etched into its very foundations. Every child of its blood, whether of pure lineage or bastard branch, was to enter the cradle once they were of age. The cradle was no mere school. It was a forge, a sacred institution where children were hammered into the perfect shape of a vise. Its doors only opened once every 3 years, gathering the 6, 7, and 8-year-olds of every branch into its cold embrace. From that point on, the children lived within its walls until they reached the age of 16, when they would be thrust into the Royal Academy to carry the Vice name into the wider world. Today was one of those rare days, a day that arrived only once in 3 long years, the day of admission. The air inside the cradle buzzed with restrained energy. The long stone hallway of the first floor was alive with whispers, as if the walls themselves leaned in to listen. Children had just stepped out from their first lesson, yet their minds were far from the teachings of their instructor. Instead, their gazes, curious, wary, and awed, were all pulled toward one boy among them. Raven Von Vaise. Whispers traveled like wildfire through the corridor. Raven, the boy who had once slain a soul snake before he could even walk properly, the boy whose existence already bent the fabric of family legends. To some, he was a genius, to others, a monster wearing the guise of a child. But to all, he was someone they could not ignore. Raven walked forward, his expression carved in stone, equal parts disdain and boredom. His black eyes held no care for the stares burning into his back, nor for the hushed rumors that chased his every step. If anything, his demeanor screamed, "Why am I here?" as though the entire institution were beneath him. Yet he was not alone. 3 shadows flanked him, his so-called companions in this life. Alex, loud and brash, a bastard child of vice who never knew when to keep quiet. Clara, sharp-tongued, sharp-eyed, another bastard whose wit cut sharper than any blade. And Jake, the quiet one, who spoke little but whose presence steadied the group. They were his associates, his companions, perhaps even the closest thing to friends he could claim in this cold household. The echoes of their earlier class clung to their steps. Damien Vaise, their instructor, had singled them out with question after question, his sharp gaze dissecting every word they spoke. Alex, flailing dramatically, still ranted about how the man had been targeting them. Clara dismissed him with cold reason, while Jake quietly acknowledged that without Raven's foresight, none of them would have been prepared. Raven himself walked in silence, his thoughts drifting between irritation at their antics and reluctant affection for their foolish loyalty. In truth, they were idiots, loud, stubborn, clumsy, but they were his idiots, and though he would never admit it aloud, he found comfort in that. Yet, as they approached the great gates of the cradle, the mood shifted. The courtyard beyond was alive with joy and warmth as children rushed into the waiting arms of their mothers. For most, it was the first reunion after leaving home, a fleeting hour of tenderness gifted by the academy before duty swallowed them whole. Laughter, tears, and whispers of love filled the air, a stark contrast to the cold stone walls surrounding them. Raven's steps slowed. He watched silently as mothers embraced their children, hands trembling with affection, eyes glistening with unspoken prayers. He saw smiles bloom like flowers in spring, heard the hushed promises of protection and pride, but his gaze did not linger on them for long. It shifted instead to the 3 standing beside him, Alex, Clara, Jake. None of them moved. They stood still, their bodies stiff, their eyes carefully avoiding his. He could see the weight pressing down on them, the hesitation in their stance. They were waiting, not for their mothers, but for him. Because unlike the others, Raven had no one waiting at those gates. No mother's arms stretched toward him. No father's proud gaze sought him out. His mother had died the moment he was born. At least that was what they all said. And his father? That man was a void, a figure too distant, too cold to even consider. The air grew heavier. Raven shoved his hands into his pockets, masking the tremor in his fingers. His companions thought him fragile, thought his silence meant he would shatter at the sight of families reuniting. They lingered beside him out of pity, out of loyalty, perhaps out of love they could not voice. But he would not allow it. His voice, sharp and mocking, cut through the air as he told them to leave. He teased them, mocked them, forced them to go find the affection they deserved. And though they hesitated, they finally relented, leaving him with glances over their shoulders, their worry naked in their eyes. Raven watched them go, holding his smirk until they disappeared into the arms of their families. Only then did the mask slip. His smirk faded, his shoulders sagged, and his eyes fell to the ground. The weight he had carried all his life settled once more in his chest. Loneliness, cold and suffocating. He had always known it, always felt it. Yet each time it pressed against him, it carved deeper into his soul. He thought this life would be different, that his mother, who in the story was supposed to live until he was 16, would be by his side. But she had died the day he was born, stripping him of the warmth he had planned to cling to. All his careful plans, all his schemes to save her had been in vain. And his father? That man was untouchable, unreachable, not even worth the thought of seeking comfort from. Still, a whisper echoed within him, quiet but stubborn. She's not dead. Everyone told him she was gone, but Raven clung to his knowledge of the story. She would not die so easily. Not her. If the plot had changed, then perhaps her fate had too. Perhaps she was alive, somewhere beyond his reach, waiting for the day he could find her. It was a fragile hope, yet it was all he had. He lifted his gaze to the sky, watching the clouds drift lazily across the blue expanse. They moved without care, unbothered by the weight pressing against the boy who stood beneath them. His eyes hardened, his resolve quietly strengthening. If she was alive, he would find her. If she was gone, he would uncover why. Either way, he would not let the story decide his fate. Unaware of the eyes watching him from the shadows, Raven turned and walked back toward his quarters, his mind already seeking the stillness of meditation to calm the storm within. From the corner of the building, Damien Vaise stepped into the light, his gray eyes glinting with intrigue. The head of the cradle, hidden behind the guise of a mere instructor, had been observing closely. A smile ghosted across his lips as he whispered to himself. Raven Von Vaise was far more impressive than expected, far sharper than the other children. He carried himself differently, bore a weight none of his peers understood. Damien felt a spark of anticipation stir within him, a rare ember of excitement. Tomorrow would bring the practical matches, the trials where children displayed their strength, and Damien, for the first time in many years, found himself eager to see what would unfold. Would Raven, the record breaker, once again shatter expectations? The question lingered in the air as the sun dipped lower, casting long shadows across the cradle. And Raven, alone yet unbroken, walked onward into the uncertain path of fate.